The fight for rights. Saudi Arabian woman. Carmen bin Laden's life took a turn for the worse in 2001 when her brother-in-law, Osama bin Laden, led a terrorist attack on the United States. Even before the attacks on the Twin Towers, she struggled greatly in Saudi Arabia with the many laws and restrictions, including not being able to leave the house without male permission, as well as trying to raise her daughters in the harsh world she lived in. Later, after the attacks, her husband divorced her and she had to fight to be able to see her children, because in Saudi Arabia, the man can keep the children in his custody forever without court judgment. These are only a couple of the many restrictions she had to deal with.
The country of Saudi Arabia is a country in the Middle East about the size of India that borders Iraq and the Red Sea. This country is infamous for their mistreatment towards women. Their rights have been so restricted that it has raised concerns among international human rights associations for many years. Their rights have been restricted since the earlier times of history, and women are constantly fighting for the same rights as men.
Saudi Arabian women have many rules that they need to follow that impact their everyday lives. They have a strict rule when it comes to clothing. Saudi Arabian women wear an abaya, a black outer cloak, over their dress, and on their heads they wear a shaila, which is a black scarf that is wrapped around their head and is sometimes secured by hats or jewelry, which symbolizes economic and social status. They must cover parts of the body that are not meant to be exposed. However, although there are certain restrictions with what they have to wear, some Saudi Arabian women wear additional clothing as a cultural or faith preference. All Saudi Arabian women cannot lift their veil in public without the danger of being arrested. Women who do not live in the country but visit Saudi Arabia must still follow the many rules of the country, including the necessary dressing.
The first stop for a woman planning to spend any time in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is to get herself an abaya, the all-black covering, without which she can't leave the house without a severe reprimand and even the threat of a lashing from the morality police.
Religion in Saudi Arabia plays a huge part on the reason of mistreatment towards Saudi Arabian women. Wahhabism, which is a very strict interpretation of Islam, is what most Saudis practice today. Wahhabism presents difficulties to the government when it tries to bring the country into the modern world, including women's rights. The Quran is the main document containing rules of Saudi Arabia, much like the Constitution for the United States. Pertaining to women, the Quran has many restrictions that include education, marriage, employment, attire, and many other limitations. The main reason women are restricted in this country is because the Islam religion strictly follows the Quran and forms their government around it.
There are many main problems international human rights associations are trying to look out for and solve. One of the most crucial restrictions that Saudi Arabian women face today is the law on driving. The law states that women are not permitted to drive cars. They are not even allowed to drive golf carts. Many women in Saudi Arabia, including Princess Amira Al Tawil, are pushing to get this right for women.
You've become a major advocate for women's rights in Saudi Arabia, particularly the right to drive.
Yeah.
Why is that important to you?
How long do we have? Well, it's symbolic, both inside and outside. Inside, other than it being an economical barrier where an average woman spends 20% to 30% on her salary on a driver, being a social barrier where she can't go to some places because of this driver, lack of privacy, sometimes safety issues. Other than all of these issues all together, just inside of our community, the fact that it's symbolic outside, where we're being judged as suppressed and as happy with the status quo when we're not, because of the fact that we're not driving. And no matter what we do, no matter how many accomplishments we do, like having the highest rates of women entrepreneurs in the Middle East, like having 70% of bank accounts owned by women, no matter how many great things we do, we'll always be judged as a country that suppresses women because we're the only country in the world where women can't drive.
Some women even boycotted going places to try to get the ability to drive. An example of this law being enforced occurred in 2011 when a woman drove through the city of Daman and then posted a video on YouTube of her driving the car. She was then convicted of breaking the law and was arrested. Women feel their safety is at risk when having to hire a male driver, but also their convenience when having to wait for a male family member to drive them. On the other hand, some women feel their safety would be at risk if they were allowed to drive. A minority of women see driving alone as a perfect opportunity for kidnappers and rapists if they happen to stop for a flat tire or when driving late at night. They enjoy the company of a man because they feel more protected.
Saudi Arabian men are looked upon as high authorities in society, especially over women, and are entitled to make every decision in the lives of the women in their family. One of these decisions involves divorce, where when a married couple divorces, the husband can take the children into his custody forever, without any papers or court judgment. An example of the superiority men have include the story where a young woman was getting sexually assaulted by her husband, yet her father insisted that she stay married to him. On the topic of sexual assault, under the Saudi Arabian government, there is no direct law stating punishments for rapists. Most cases of rape are not reported in fear of imprisonment or outcasting of the family. If a woman is raped but proven to put herself in the existence of the rapist, she receives the same punishment as her rapist. A very cool example of how serious rape is in Saudi Arabia is the court case that sentenced a woman who was gang raped to 200 whips and 6 months in prison. The court said that they were justified in giving her this punishment because she was in a car with a person not related to her when the rape occurred. Another example to demonstrate how easily Saudi Arabian men get away with domestic abuse is the story of a Saudi Arabian court case in 2011 where the court convicted a man of domestic abuse of his wife to hospitalization, but the husband was only punished by having to read passages of the Prophet Muhammad, who is very well respected in their country. Women in Saudi Arabia are not allowed to go anywhere without the consent of a male guardian. Male guardians can include fathers, husbands, brothers, and even sons. There are times when a woman has to obey her son if her husband or her father is not present.
Marriage is a difficulty that Saudi Arabian women must also face. Polygamy, the practice of having more than one wife at a time, is legal in Saudi Arabia. Men are allowed to take up as many as 4 wives. Saudi Arabian women, on the other hand, cannot marry a non-Muslim man unless they are granted permission to do so.
Women also have difficulties in the workforce along with the education system. Most universities allow women to enroll into certain limited majors, while others do not accept women at all. Male teachers are not permitted to teach female students, and female teachers are not permitted to teach male students. Girls are raised knowing their primary job is taking care of the children and keeping the house in order. Many public places have sex segregation, which makes it harder for women to find employment. One of the most prominent sex segregation laws was created in 2012, and it stated that men and women cannot interact in any form in the same workplace. A story of how serious Saudi Arabia takes sex segregation happened in 2008, when a woman was waiting with a male colleague at a cafe in their building with which both of their offices resided. They were there waiting for lights in the building to be restored after going out. She was arrested, strip searched, forbidden to contact her husband, and was forced to sign a paper stating that she was with a man not related to her. Saudi Arabian women have so many restrictions that even the slightest things can get them convicted and arrested.
Throughout multiple decades of time, Saudi Arabian women have faced constant complications in their everyday lives and are continuously fighting for their rights. With hope for the future, the women of this country are joining forces with organizations all around the world to gain the same rights as individuals and gain the same respect as men.